This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're breaking down some of the weapons from Battlefield 6. Also, my favourite new gadget to Battlefield 6, it's just a ladder.
I saw the ladder, yeah.
Just an assault ladder.
Closest thing, my brain is leaping around as usual, but Glock make entrenching tools, so maybe HK make ladders?
There are a ton of weapons in Battlefield 6, so make sure you subscribe as we will no doubt be returning to take another look at the arsenals of Pax Armata and NATO in a future episode. Also, we now have merch. You can find the whole collection at expvideo.info, but more on that later. But now, without further ado, I will throw it over to Jonathan.
Right, so Call of Duty players will recognise this. Modern Warfare. The M13, is it? In 2019 and 2 and 3 as well.
I believe so, yeah.
In real life, this is the, well, depending on caliber,
5.56 it's definitely implied to be. I think there might be markings on the weapon as well. There's definitely markings on other weapons.
There are, yeah. I can see them on the magazine well. So this is the HK433, not M443. 433, I should say. It's not the M443, it's the HK433. Or at least that's how HK USA say it. This has what looks to be, from memory, not the typical HK M-Lock handguard. The rest of it looks good though. I've fired one of these now. I've had my hands on a couple. First saw it at a show back in 2017. And the problem HK have got is that the 416 is so popular and G36 is still so popular that they're sort of cannibalizing potentially their own sales. I kind of hope this thing wins through because it's very sort of, it's just cool, isn't it? Hence it's in this game. And to me, this looks like a more faithful rendition than the M13 from COD.
For your context as well, the campaign starts in 2027, and it's implied that the multiplayer and the rest of the campaign takes place in the years following that. So it's a lot of current service and the thing we've talked about before, people predicting what might enter service in the not too distant future.
Yep, the 433 therefore is a good shout, as they say, except that lots of people are... Yeah, the HK marketing has done so well with the 416 that will this thing genuinely be in significant service in another couple of years? Remains to be seen. Worth noting that they actually have, I don't think COD did this, they have the actual HK mag that is sold with the magazine that is sold with this rifle. So I think they've been quite faithful with the design, which is interesting, given our past conversations about difference. I should write out, well, not quite right out the gate, but it's the first weapon I'm looking at, say that I've been not hopefully unkind, but I've previously noted that the Battlefield games have a slightly grainy kind of quality texture to their textures, which on the one hand gives it its own feel as a game, but on the other has made me think doesn't quite look like the real thing. I've got to say, seeing this in proper resolution and not on my phone screen, this looks really good. You can see it's got that sort of matte satin finish of a modern HK finished aluminium upper receiver, and it has what looks like a more textured grain finish polymer lower receiver. So it's unsurprisingly, graphics get better over time, but I would say that, and I hope fans will forgive me for saying this, they've sort of caught up with some of the very high fidelity models that we do see in the COD series, albeit they have veered quite far away from reality because they've had to, or the artists have had to, put it that way. Animations are looking good. Case ejection's looking amazing, actually. Something about the way they're shooting off in that sort of blurred, angled way that I like, which is sort of how it looks if you happen to watch your case ejection in detail. And I actually don't recall if this has that level of forward angle to its ejection, but let's say it does. The way they're kind of disappearing into the middle distance somehow feels more real than what I'm used to. Great handling as well. The animations are very slick, but not robotically slick as they sometimes can be in FPS games. Feels quite naturalistic. And we've got some customization going on now.
I've not unlocked all the customization options, but I wanted to include some of them because the way they've included some customization options and marrying that to functionality is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like I'm drawing attention to the mag flare because that allows you to stay aiming down sights while replacing a magazine, which struck me as as an interesting nod to that thing's functionality. It's easier to insert a magazine because of the flared magwell. So yeah, maybe it would allow a soldier to keep a rifle in the aim and more effectively get a magazine into their weapon. There's been some thought in there that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I haven't tried that, and I don't know if competition... I don't recall seeing a competition shooter fully stay in the aim while reloading. I think if you practiced hard enough, you probably could. But you've got a higher chance, let's put it that way, because the whole point of that flare is it will catch the edge of the magazine if you're slightly out and funnel it in for you. Probably not super realistic, but I think it's a nice inspiration from what it actually does. And it's not the arbitrary thing of this buttstock gives you extra penetration from your bullets. Also, you know what I mean? That level of arbitrary buff that you get from parts. I would far rather have something that is rooted in reality. And as I say, it might be plausible. Discuss.
Also, my favourite new gadget to Battlefield 6, it's just a ladder.
I saw the ladder. Yeah.
Just an assault ladder.
Closest thing, my brain is leaping around as usual, but Glock make entrenching tools, so maybe HK make ladders.
It's such a simple thing, but it's so useful to just attack an objective from a different angle and take advantage of some verticality. It's so fun just appearing behind an unsuspecting player because they haven't expected an entry from above.
I'm going to leave that one well alone.
As soon as I started seeing some of these weapon models, I was just like, oh yeah, we're back, boys.
Yeah, no, this is looking good so far. A gun that we have. Excellent. That's what we like to see. So this is a slightly shorter version than what we've got of the SIG MPX 9mm submachine gun. Gas operated with an operating rod and with, AR-15 basically controls. So really, in fact, MPX, I might have said this before, but MPX is a bit of a riff on MP5. It was really an attempt to beat the world beater. Here is ours for reference. Ours is disappointingly semi-automatic only. But you can see it has the same sliding push button. I won't call it a wire buttstock because these are very robust steel rods, but some people might call it that. It's actually a Picatinny rail attachment on the back. One of the first weapons that I came across that did that. So you can adapt. You can put anything on there without needing an AR-15 buffer tube type adapter, which I'm a big fan of because I don't like those on things that aren't AR-15s or AR-15 derivatives. Ours is not very tricked out. It just has some iron sights and a little stubby vertical grip. You can obviously do what you like on your Battlefield 6 version. I'm guessing this is also adaptable to longer barrels?
Yeah, there's a few longer barrel options, other optic options. So the only difference between the one in-game and the one you've got is really the colour and the optic. There's a lot of attachments in Battlefield 6, but you can't really trick weapons out as much as you might have been able to in the past or in other games. All the attachments feel fairly authentic.
Yeah.
I think the wackiest thing you'll be able to do is put a crazy long scope on a PDW that might not be suited for it. And
I'm sure people will, just for the hell of it. Colour, when we acquired this, black was still a bit more fashionable. I dare say. The sort of wolf grey that SIG uses is pretty popular now, and of course you get the desert tan. Used to be, the Henry Ford thing of any colour you like as long as it's black. Certainly different handguards on this now. I think they do still sell this pattern with the screw attachment points for Picatinny rail, but slick-sided otherwise. So just a 12 o'clock rail, not even one on the bottom. So you can attach strips of rail wherever you like. This just has it's actually an A1 pattern flash suppressor, AR-15 on this one, for some reason.
I think that's the same flash suppressor that's on the one in the game as well. Well, that's the default one that the weapon comes with.
Yeah, but yeah, it's good. It's good for the game that people like SIG have kept the submachine gun alive with new designs because it means they can put in something. Now, admittedly, this thing was launched in 2012, 2013, 2012, I think, maybe even 2011, or revealed, I should say. So it's by no means new, but it's a current generation submachine gun. So you're not getting that slightly jarring thing, unless there is an MP5 in the game. Is there an MP5 in the game? Am I going to see an MP5? I hope so.
Stay tuned to find out.
Even that is not by any means wrong. That thing is still being sold, still being used. It's not wrong. But in a game that is present day, a couple of years in the future, you're going to want to see futuristic submachine gun. Not futuristic. Current submachine gun.
I know you're familiar with Battlefield series and classes and the included weapons. Battlefield 6 has an open weapon pool, so any class can use any weapons. It's a bit of a controversial topic among Battlefield fans. I have my allegiances that I won't go into in this episode.
Instinctively, I don't think that's a good idea. But you can tell me why.
I prefer closed weapons, but I'm starting to appreciate the open weapon pool. The SMG is the class weapon of the engineer, so you are encouraged to use weapons that tie to your classes. So, for example, the engineer's got a better hipfire capability with SMGs. The vibe that I pick up is that as an engineer, you're an extension of the vehicles. You're supposed to remain close to the vehicles, potentially even assumed to be part of the vehicle crew. So you've got an SMG or a PDW, you're hopping out to repair the tank. You might not be carrying a full-sized weapon. You're going to have an SMG or a PDW. It feels like it's a vehicle crew weapon. Obviously in game, it's more, taking close combat objectives and engaging enemies in close combat.
Yeah.
But I can't get away from that PDW vehicle crew part of that connection, and assuming that must be why they've chosen SMGs as the engineer specific weapon.
Yeah, it makes game sense, moderately realistic game sense, as in not Destiny or something. Why not? And I'm starting to come around as you're talking there to the idea that if you use the weapons that you're sort of supposed to use and it gives you a benefit, but if you want to break out of that and have choice, you can. Kind of torn on it, because obviously in the real world you typically don't get to choose your weapons, and games have always been very liberal in letting you choose your weapon, or at least pick them up, and here you can choose what you start with, I guess the closest thing to that is sort of tier 1 special operations forces, who can pick which of the weapons that are in their armory that are suitable for a mission, or even configure them. Your typical regular army or marine force doesn't have that latitude, so this feels like moving even further, maybe not, I wouldn't say retrograde, but like a sideways step toward just use stuff because it's cool. But then again, if you've got as long as you've got the benefit that doesn't make a nonsense of the class system, is probably where I stand with that one. It's fine. Probably. I'll tell you when I've played it.
We need to get a bank of time to see how players have actually used the system. I think a lot of people are assuming that they're going to use sniper rifle on the assault because they get to use their ladder, get to high ground, then snipe. But the sniper, the recon, has a specific class ability that they're able to hold their breath for longer to stay the scope, and that they have something called a fatal headshot. So if a sniper headshots you now, you can't be revived. It's game over.
Okay. A fatal headshot.
They've always been pretty fatal. But you can't have some support come and defib you from a 7.62 going through your dome piece anymore if you're a sniper. So there are definitely benefits to using the class specific weapons. But at the same time, I think I would be frustrated if I'm an engineer on a very open map with long sight lines and I'm stuck with an SMG if I'm trying to stick to the vehicle, because immediately then I'm like, well, as soon as the vehicle's gone or I'm separate from the vehicle, I can't do anything. But if I have a rifle or a DMR, I can at least defend myself or shoot back from distance. But it's interesting. It's probably the biggest change up they've added to the Battlefield series in quite some time. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops once more people get their hands on it.
That's actually fascinating, that the idea that you can leverage the traditional video game one-shot kill headshot mechanic into you're actually dead. That's really interesting. I mean, obviously games have had permadeath, hardcore modes and whatever for a long time, but putting that into a game that's otherwise like hit point based essentially is really interesting.
Yeah, because in previous games it would be sort of frustrating to make a really great shot from distance, land a headshot, and then some medic just revive them.
Yep.
Especially if it's another enemy recon who can then, they're like, well, I know where that guy is now, and I'm now alive again. I know where to shoot.
Yeah, I've been
so
there.
At least now you've got a more benefit to landing those shots and being the class best suited to landing those shots.
Right, I did have to look this one up. M87 Battlefield's normally very good about its designations. M87A1 didn't ring any bells with me. I don't think that's an actual designation. This is a Mossberg 590 with some Magpul aftermarket furniture on it. Well, unless Mossberg offer it with Magpul furniture, a lot of companies these days do offer stuff with their accessories on there. Check the website. they may or may not offer that. Reload is awesome. Chambering around and then quickly but plausibly loading the tube. And then topping off, very good.
an entirely different animation depending on whether you're reloading it from empty or, like you said, topping it off.
That's cool.
There's a really nice little detail when you're reloading from empty. I'll admit I don't actually know the technical name of this piece of the shotgun, but if you watch the reload back from empty, if you look at the ejection port, that piece of metal coming up as you feed the...
Yes, the lifter, the cartridge lifter.
The lifter. There we go. That's my lesson for today. Cartridge lifter.
I think we've seen them before, but this is obviously much better than older stuff as far as how well it's modelled. I'm sure we could grab a 500 off the rack and side by side it, but I'm fairly certain they will have nailed that.
One thing that Battlefield has always done really well is allowing the shotguns to have a longer range, even if they're not super effective.
Yes.
And especially, you know, in video game ranges, being able to even chip away at someone at 50 meters, 75 meters, it's nice to see.
Yeah.
Especially when you manage to tag someone who might have had like 5 health and you get that really long range shot. And this is with buckshot. You have slugs as an option.
Yeah. I would be amazed if you didn't. Yeah, I can't recall exactly what we said before about effective range. I think hopefully what I said is effective range is kind of malleable as a concept depending on things like barrel length, sighting, cartridge type. I guess a good rule of thumb is probably 50 meters. Like buckshot or slug absolutely should be able to be effective out to 50. Slug probably out to 100. This looks really good. Sounds really good.
Yeah, we've talked about the sound design of Battlefield games before, and they do such an amazing job. But I'm glad you mentioned it because it was using the shotgun and hearing that boom and how that changes between indoor and outdoor and everything else. That was the bit that triggered in my brain being like, God, the sound design of this game is good.
Yeah, I think the sort of boom of a shotgun is so people understand. You know, they've heard it, they're familiar with it. It's the first thing that games got right, I think, as far as gunshot sounds. Even if their rifle, their machine gun, whatever, was a bit kind of stock sound effect and a bit weak sounding. Shotguns, I think, for the first thing. Like, I'm thinking of Doom. Realistically, the sound effect of both of the shotguns actually in the original game is ahead of its time in that respect. So you have an increasingly high bar for sound, and Battlefield themselves are hugely responsible for that. I'm no sound engineer, but all of the various aspects that alter the way we perceive sound. I guess the only thing that raised a little mental flag was how that foregrip was being gripped. It seemed a bit low down and a bit kind of not super professional. Then again, a great big vertical grip like that isn't really ergonomically ideal for a pump action, so that might actually reflect how their motion capture actually went when they did it. Don't know, but it felt a little clunky. But I think that's more to do with if I went and tried to demonstrate that, I would do a worse job for sure.
We are about to take ground. Our attack on Echo is in progress.
Oh, okay. So M277, some of these apparent military designations are being changed in this game. That's interesting. So 277, 0.277 of an inch, aka 277 Fury, that's the civilian or commercial version of the 6.8. 6.8 common cartridge, which is its sort of in-house name in the US Army, because this is actually the M7. Kind of interesting that they felt the need to not call it the M7, because that's, historically in games, M16, M4, everyone's happy to use those net terms, including Activision, including DICE, EA, whoever. That's going to be the most significant, glaring name discrepancy, because there's no such thing as an M277, as far as I can think, and certainly it's... So they're alluding to the cartridge type. I might have called it the M68. I guess that would be confused with the optic, but yeah. Looks good. I think they've kept pretty close. Don't have one to compare. Have shot one. Check out the Royal Armouries channel if you want to see me being far from expert with an XM7. That one was marked XM7. This thing has been adopted. There are about 30,000 of this and the machine gun, if I remember rightly. So, and in theory, more will be coming. I've seen a new variant of it as well. But this looks correct. But the one thing with this model that does stick out for me is that the very first XM7s They had this forward assist plunger on there. You'll know it from, of course, from the AR-15, the M16, M4. That was deleted relatively early on in production. So most of the M7s you see, in fact, all of the M7s, the ones marked M7, you won't know that unless you're right up close with it, shouldn't have that forward assist. I think I'm right in saying I don't think there'll be any M7s that have it. The majority of those in service, of the rifle types in service, won't have the forward assist. It was retained because the US Army has a history with wanting a mechanical means of closing the bolt if it doesn't fully go forward, or you want to close it very quietly. Schools of thought on that. Clearly, they've decided after many decades that they don't need it. So that's gone. Otherwise, this looks right to me. There has been a change to the handguard. That might be the earlier pattern handguard. Also known as the MCX Spear. That's its commercial name, not what it's called in military service. We do have the 2 charging handles. That's correct for reasons of familiarity. It has AR-15 controls, including the T-shaped charging handle at the back. SIG are wanting to push toward a more ergonomic, let's be honest, it is more ergonomic for most people if they're right-handed. Charging handle on the receiver, left side. The US Army wanted to retain its muscle memory collectively with the T charging handle at the back. Used to be done with the 2 fingers, typically now with the finger and thumb on the side. The compromise was to keep both. Good suppressed sound effect there. Sounds still quite punchy, but subdued by the suppressor, which is what it should sound like.
I really like how they've implemented the LPVO as well. I was surprised to see that it did have options in terms of magnification, 1 to 4. And you could see some of the smoothness of swapping between those options.
That's very good. Something that does disappoint me with modern tactical games is when they put LPVOs in the game, but you can't adjust them. They're just like a fixed magnification. It really compromises the whole point of what that thing is and forces you to use other kit, because why would you bother with something that you can't adjust from 1 to 6 or to 8 or whatever. Now, you are seeing that with an LPVO. You're not seeing it with what should be the adopted, very fancy computerized optic that shifts your point of impact for you based on range calculations and other factors, and tracks targets and all that kind of fascinating stuff. That said, that's still an XM. It's still experimental. It's not confirmed to be introduced into service at time of recording. Maybe we're in a timeline where that never happens and they go with the standard SIG LPVO, which you will see fitted to this weapon in YouTube videos and things.
I do feel like that LPVO is a recognizable thing attached to the spear now.
It is. That's largely to do with marketing, promotional stuff, where and to be fair, where things like people like YouTube channels have purchased their own commercial version and they don't have access to the fancy site. It's a shame if that's not in the game though, because Battlefield is known for things like the M25, XM25 with its airburst sighting thing. So they could have done some admittedly very OP stuff. Yeah, it is curious that they've gone with calling this, or not calling it a carbine necessarily, but putting it in the carbine category. It is a short barrel on that weapon, 13 inches. We would have traditionally called that a carbine, just on the basis of short barrel. But that's not the only thing that defines a carbine. It's been adopted as a service rifle, not as a carbine. It's not for artillery or engineers or cavalry or people that need a less capable rifle. It's essentially what a carbine is, whether it's smaller caliber, shorter barrel, or both. The meaning has shifted over time, or even a wholly different round. Sometimes, things like the M1 Carbine has its own specific round. This is none of those things. It just has a 13-inch barrel, and that presumably is their justification. But we have to think that weapons like this these days have a, not permanently attached, but it's meant to be on the weapon when you're using it, suppressor. And that brings the overall length up closer to something like, I guess maybe not a traditional full-length rifle, but certainly the overall length of something like an M4. In fact, well beyond that in this case. Terminology is a problem. Let's not overthink it like I just did, and let's just enjoy it in the game.
These are our original designs that we're putting on our merch. They're actually what's on my back right now. So we've worked with someone called Hatlegs to create these designs for some EXP merchandise. And I thought it'd be fun to get your thoughts on them.
What's it going to be? Oh, okay. What's this? That's it's an AK MGL. It's not awful. It's just a bit confusing. Yeah, I suppose the worst thing is the gas tube not being a gas tube, maybe. The more I look at it. Oh, and the RPG optic. it kind of makes a twisted kind of sense, doesn't it?
I really like this one. This was the one we let Hat Legs just have full creative freedom over that one. Just went, make something weird.
Oh no, that's disappointing. Is that a Steyr TMP MP5K? Again, if you didn't know those guns existed and someone showed you this, you'd go, oh, that's really quite cool. But because of what it's done to the MP5, I can't forgive it, unfortunately.
Our cursed collection is a limited run, but features 10 very cursed weapon designs, and we also have a permanent core collection using EXP's logos, but we've got t-shirts, hoodies, and even posters and pint glasses, all at expvideo.info. And if you check out the collection and decide to treat yourself, then it also means you're supporting the work we do here at EXP. But now, we'll get back to the video.
Be advised, enemies are attacking Delta.
Yeah, M4A1. So we have semi-auto safe on the lower, and I think, let me just let this spin around. Can't quite see the lower receiver. Do we have any view of the roll marks? Sorry, AR-15 nerd here. Less than some, more than most. I'm looking for just the name of the gun. Is the name of the gun on the gun? I don't see it. It will be on there. Oh, there we go. Right, so I've got a logo. So we shouldn't expect to see Colt or FN's logo on here. That's branding. That's a protected trademark.
This is made by Lock Systems Manufacturing USA.
Thank you. I see the logo, LS. Now, the way that's in an oval and is 2 letters makes me think that's a riff on the FN logo when that appears on US GI M4s and M16s, because the FN basically took over from Colt making US military AR-15s. Yes, they are AR-15s. Yes, I will die in that ditch for quite a period of time. So I think they're riffing on FN, something that from a distance could be a USGI FN-made M4, or is it an M4? We're coming to that. And then the rest of it is property of US government, caliber, serial number in the correct format. So they've stayed as close as they can to the correct markings. They've just changed the logo. That's all good. If we accept the legal difference, that lower receiver, sure, M4A1. That pattern of buttstock, you'll find that on M4A1s as well, of course. And interestingly, just notice the upper receiver has a different tone to it. Because there are changes over time in how finishes are applied, what the finish is, and even how they sort of wear, or in this case, this just looks like 2 different production batches of rifle fitted together, which is something that happens in service.
One cool detail I spotted, when you see the weapon spin, on the right side of the weapon you see that dash of paint, which
yes,
I assume is so you could easily glance and see if it's unsafe. If the swipe is complete, then the weapon is unsafe, because when you look at the weapon in-game, that's moved. So you can glance at it and be like, oh, it's no longer unsafe.
How interesting. I don't know. I don't recall seeing a dash of paint like that in that area. Your explanation makes sense. Don't know if that's what people really do. I haven't noticed it, but that doesn't mean it isn't real.
Well, that's a cool detail. The downside is that when you do switch fire mode on the M4A1, the fire selector doesn't move.
Oh.
There's a nice little detail with the fire selector of safe and ready to fire, but I think it would have been even nicer if we could see that fire selector go from semi to auto.
That seems like just a mistake that would get fixed at some point. I'd be amazed if that's in any way deliberate. But yes, it's the sort of thing that would irk me as well.
It only came to my attention, or I was only drawn to it because they added that little white swipe of paint, which I thought was a cool visual detail to
ironic.
Being able to glance at the weapon and seeing if it's safe already.
Is there anyone in maybe SOCOM that has this configuration of barrel length? It's not a Mark 18 or CQBR barrel length, it's longer than that. Is there anyone in the US Army running around with this configuration? I genuinely don't know. I have never seen one. Now, what I would say, and I still think you can call it an M4A1. I think, even let's say that upper is not, the one I'm looking at is not a current service upper. The lower is, and that's what the US military would regard as an M4A1. And there are other options for upper receiver. So it's not the M4A1 that maybe I would like to see as the default. That should still, I think, be the 14.5-inch barrel with the quad rail, or yeah, you could even go, as it's a couple of years in the future, you could have gone with URGI, but then that makes more sense as an upgrade. The wear is good as well. So I mentioned that there's a difference in the upper and lower finish, which as far as I'm concerned, even if that upper is not a service upper, the fact that they've made it look different to the lower sells it to me as this is somebody's upgraded rifle. But the actual wear pattern as well, you'll see on the front of the magazine well on the lower, there's wear where someone has habitually been using it like this. Maybe not the best form. I'm not a rifle shooter per se, so I won't criticize anyone that does that. Certainly not a tactical shooter. But as far as I understand it, getting the sport hand out further is the preferred means of doing it. But it's quite fashionable for a while to use a mag well hold.
I mean, even we've joked about tape on weapons before, but even the added tape to the magazine is being worn off. It looks like, hands have rubbed up against it numerous times and it's starting to fray.
I do think, this is not exactly controversial or revolutionary as a thing to say, but art in video games is horrifically overlooked. It's true of movies as well with production design. Absolutely it is. But I think by default, the modelers and artists who create assets for the very celebrated AAA video games and all the other video games don't get the credit that they deserve.
Oh yeah, enormous agree. I don't think, it'd be surprising that we thought different considering the nitpicks and rabbit holes and attention to detail we put on the weapons. And like we said before, a lot of this exists to just create when someone looks at the whole of a weapon, that it feels authentic. Yeah. They're not really thinking, I'm going to put this tape here because I want everyone to look at this tape. It's it's an addition to make the weapon as a whole hit the target of feeling like something a soldier has used.
Equally, the weapon people shouldn't get all the credit. Look at those roof tiles.
It's hard to see in direct light, but all the gases coming out of the muzzle look really good as well, following the pattern of that
they do.
Flash hider.
So I'd say, again, you can argue it's an M4A1 by virtue of the lower, but that feels like a technicality rather than being technically correct, because this isn't what you're going to get issued in 2 years if you join the US Army. Low-profile front sight blocks absolutely are a thing. The URGI configuration with the long handguard goes for a low-profile front sight block with the rail over the top. I don't think you're going to see that folding sight block suddenly appear on standard issue, nor a shortened barrel of a length that isn't in general service. They must have done this for some sort of balance reason. Is this well, no, because this surely is in the rifle class, isn't it? It's
in the carbine class.
Right. So I've accidentally answered my question, haven't I? They've decided, right, we want an M4A1 because it's the standard issue rifle, but we need it in a more visibly carbine length. The thing is, the M4 is a carbine, so you didn't need to make this configuration to justify it being in the carbine class. It's Schrodinger's weapon, insofar as it's a carbine introduced into service as a carbine by almost anyone's definition with the shorter barrel and the roles that it was originally used in, only to then become the standard issue rifle of the US Army later on. So it's both at the same time. So you didn't need that. I'm harping on this way too much. It's fine.
Jonathan Ferguson talking a lot about an AR-15 style weapon.
I know.
Come on now.
No, I can only apologise / say you're welcome, depending on how into this you are. So, another weapon we don't have as yet. If you look closely, you will see some Remington 700 heritage to this thing. Kind of intriguing. It's almost reminiscent of the video game guns that we've looked at, where they've taken some inspiration from a real-world gun and then gone their own way. Well, this is kind of what's happened with the ESR. It's a real gun, as you might imagine. This is Battlefield. They don't mess around. They're using real stuff. Obviously, unless it's a future version. In fact, even when it is a future version, they typically use real stuff. So you'll see the action, cocking piece, bolt handle. That's all still 700 because it's still the old M24 sniper system, but massively updated with a chassis, including a long forend with attachment points, a brake. I guess another good example of when good enough is good enough, but you still change what you can to keep it current. Nothing inherently wrong with that action by any means, and a little bit cheaper, I guess, to continue to upgrade rather than buying a load of brand new sniper rifles. That's quite the flourish of hurling the magazine away. I guess because it's a sort of rock-in system, so it's a bit harder to do the drop free, but I would think there's enough length in the magazine to hit the catch and push it away with your thumb. You're actually wasting energy, I suppose, is where my brain is going with this. You're wasting a little bit of time in your reload in ejecting it and casting it away.
Thus far, this is the most ostentatious version of any weapon I've got, but so far they're fairly restricted in terms of how crazy you can make a weapon look, which I don't mind. I'll put it that way.
You know me, I'm a fan of black and red.
That is why I included it.
This is just a bit too far into the 90s for me with the geometric pattern and the grey. I think when I was a kid, my bedroom looked like that. It's like we moved in and I think they'd recently decorated it.
Oh, I thought it was a choice of yours. You were like, no, I want my bedroom to look like this.
Black and red? Yes. Black, grey, white and red? Not entirely sold, I'm afraid, but it's a bold effort. Not something you're going to see on the actual battlefield, I dare say, but relatively subdued for some of the stuff that you do show me. Although you can sort of detect that old Winchester in there just about, this one is actually meant to be 300 Magnum. So higher energy, sort of flatter shooting, longer distance, longer effective range, I guess, than with 7.62. You typically need a longer, heavier action for these bigger cartridges.
It was the ESR like an initiative they put forward to update these rifles? Because it's called the ESR in game, which just refers to enhanced sniper rifle.
Yeah, that's far, as is tradition with Battlefield, the military designations are usually, possibly always, correct. So they haven't gone, like some companies have gone so far with the legal difference thing that they won't even use the military names. Battlefield used to and clearly still does. So M24 ESR should be correct. M24 is certainly correct. Sniper rifle is correct. As far as I remember, ESR is actually what it's called as well.
Contact! Enemy hero!
Objective Foxtrot neutralized.
Ooh, nice. Okay, so my first reaction is I fired one of these yesterday, which is a flex. I'm sorry, but I did. It's an honest reaction. So this is actually, on the face of it, a Minimi Mark III. This is not, as it's claiming to be, the L110. That's the British service Minimi, the shorter barreled British service Minimi. So this is kind of a parallel universe of what if the British Army didn't get rid of the L110A1 and adopted an L110A2 that has the Minimi Mark III features, because that's what this is. That revised buttstock is the most obvious change to the Mark III, and is really good, I have to say. It's much more comfortable to shoot than the legacy one, especially the para stock that you pull out and turn. Very cool design for making a super compact light machine gun. Not as comfortable or as ergonomic as this. One of the drawbacks of that was it's very low. So if you want optics on your machine gun, when the Minimi was first designed and then brought into service, obviously as the M249, and in British service as the L110 and the L108, optics weren't a thing. There was no rail top cover yet, so you didn't worry about that. These days, everyone wants a Picatinny rail, they want an optic. So to account for iron sights, but also optics, you've got that cheek piece that raises up and down. We still have the shoulder thing that goes up on the back, which I fail to use actually, but it's there if you need it. It just allows you to rest the weapon on the top of the shoulder. And then the grip underneath. Machine guns do this in different ways, but if you're in the prone, as you probably should be, although with a weapon like this, you don't have to be, being able to reach back and grasp something that's sort of curved for your hand is really helpful as well. So that's probably the main change. Obviously the rail, but that's been retrofitted to other Minimis as well. That pattern of handguard. I do notice that the rounds there, lovingly modelled and textured, of course, no complaints there, are green tip. So M855, yeah, reasonably high rate on the Minimi, but a lower power cartridge. So, you know, you can do this. With the shorter barrel version, you can use this as what some people now call an assault machine gun, which I know will upset some people, but designers and even some armed forces are using that term. Think also of the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets in Vietnam, who've used RPDs and Stoner 63 machine guns, very much in an assaulting role. And clearly in the game, that's what we're using this Minimi as. I've noticed on this for the first time, we've got that, of course, that Battlefield 1 graphical system of mud and blood and crud all over the weapon. So I guess that's our blood, Dave, that's on that weapon?
That appeared on the weapon as soon as I started to take wounds. This is about as bloody as it gets. Right. Because I was playing in support, I was sat on a med pack bipod defending a point with my machine gun. So I was taking a lot of rounds. I didn't see anything get more bloody than this. So it's a bit more reserved than the Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5 system.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there is
Interesting.
As you can see, a visual indication on you've taken some rounds today, and now your weapon's looking a bit mucky.
It's a bit of a Jackson Pollock. There's claret everywhere. I mean, I'm not a forensic scientist or certainly not a blood spatter analyst. It looks plausible enough, I guess, as far as liquid drops of a certain consistency. Whether they would come out of you and onto the weapon in that kind of almost artistic way, I don't know. Perhaps my forensic scientist friends, of whom I have several actually, might be able to comment on that one. And why not? Shout out to Mick, who I suspect will be paying attention to this. Ah, the euphemistically named PW5A3. Very happy to see this. The MP5. So I do sort of have an MP5 update for people here. Some of you will know this, but having attended the DSCI show this year for the first time in many years, the MP5 MLI, midlife improvement model that was introduced, about 10 years ago now. More than that. Which is what this is, with the H-key handguard for bits of rail, or maybe even direct mount accessories, and that ever so slightly amusing rail adapter with the this way forward arrow on it. And I guess the revised buttstock, but that was already part of the build standard. That was introduced as the MLI over 10 years ago, and it was desert tan. I don't believe you could get a black version, or at least it wasn't in the catalogue, put it that way. Now it is, and in fact they had an example on the HK stand in London the other week, exactly like this one. And I'm going to jump off the back of my own comment to say, this one's really good, guys. Thank you for doing it right. Much appreciated. I still don't see why the COD one needed to change so much, and I'm glad this one hasn't. I dare say even the guys at HK are glad about it too, but I won't speak for them. Looks good. We got some basic accessory, or one basic accessory here. Well, two, I guess. The optic on the rail adapter, which I have to say, still kind of ruins the lines a bit for me, but it's correct, so it's fine. There are other adapters, of course, available. And just a vertical grip on the bottom rail on the front of the gun. But I'm literally saying what I'm seeing here, so I'm not much more help than a sports announcer at this point.
There's a small, interesting detail that I noticed. When the weapon is fired until empty,
yes,
the reload takes place, as you'd expect.
Oh, that's very nice.
With the slap.
Yes, carry on.
But when you do a partial reload, you've already got a round in the chamber, that the model will flip on the safety very quickly, insert the second magazine, and flip it back off again. Again, unfortunately, the fire selector doesn't accurately represent the fire that you're currently set to, but I thought that was a nice little detail of...
Also, what I think would be quite an awkward one to pull off, but kind of a fun one. We've got a version of, I guess what you'd see more typically on an AR or a pistol maybe, where you're holding the fresh mag between your fingers and swapping them over, maybe to sort of overcome the perceived an actual slight slowness of the MP5 versus the AR system of not locking open. Germans think that's fine, the Americans don't. I'm in the middle, I guess. Yeah, you'd speed that up a little bit by being able to have the magazine on hand or in hand. I haven't tried that. I might be trying it later with over some foam so I don't drop any magazines on the floor. I assume they've mocapped that. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone do that.
There's a ton of really nice details in the MP5 that, like the setting the weapon to safe during a reload has been on a few weapons that I wanted to draw attention to on the MP5 because, of course, I know you love the thing. But even the charging handle shakes a little bit during firing. The magazine catch button raises and resets during a reload. There's tons of really nice detail in the MP5.
Yes. Yep, both good catches there, which makes it an extra shame that the fire selectors on a couple of these guns aren't moving. That I have to assume someone ran out of time and is probably, sad about that. I always feel like a game is somewhat realistic if I am mainly using semi on things like rifles. The MP5 really only makes sense on automatic. I guess the burst, but someone who's put in enough time on the gun is probably not using the burst, I would say. But certainly where you feel you need to make sure that the target's down, as we do in the game. Automatic makes a lot of sense, and the MP5 is the king of controllable automatic fire, as we know. So that fits for me, and I'm sure I'll find myself doing the same thing. And of course, it's much cooler as well, which helps. Yeah, I'd be a little concerned with that 2 mag in hand reload that you're going to get enough authority inserting the mag that way. That said, the whole point of the bolt being locked open is you don't have any downward pressure to counteract. So I'm sure it's doable, and it's something new. Always nice to see something new, especially on such a vintage platform as the MP5, which is, I guess it's Gen X. Like me, but it's older Gen X.
I know, what's the millennial gun for me?
Hey, I'm only a year out, so I definitely have a lot of millennial tendencies. Something strikes me as a little wrong about B36.
Yeah, it felt uncomfortable to me as well.
It's weird, isn't it? It's because it's so close to G36. Right, so this is good to see, though. This is the current offering from HK, who absolutely have not stopped selling the G36. My understanding, and I could be wrong about this, is because of the perceived issues with heating, and we have to remember the G36 was not designed for high-intensity expeditionary warfare. It just wasn't. It was incredibly light and handy. It's partly why it makes such a great police carbine. The UK police services almost universally adopted this thing in the 90s, early 2000s. They followed the AR trend to some extent later on, but yeah, it is a sound military service rifle. You can't put as many magazines through the basic G36 on automatic, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, ideally, as you can on something like an AR, and you can't put as many through an AR as you can through a fully metal receiver version of this weapon system. So they reinforced that area with some metal. But this is actually technically an LMG, but this is closer to I think it's the same barrel profile and barrel length that we have on the screen. So we'll go with this one. So the changes, as I say, reinforcement, obviously a metal handguard like we just saw on the 36C. So on the C, you'll see this area here under the handguard is all polymer. If we pop out this pin quickly and pop off this rather stiff handguard, that will let me show you what I'm talking about. So that is all plastic under there, directly under where the top rail attaches. It's all plastic. If you really go to town shooting magazine after magazine, that could be a problem. And you'll see there, that bit's exposed by default on this new design, and it is made out of a solid machined block of aluminium. So that's the front end, that's the main change. Other stuff would have changed anyway, even if they didn't redesign the weapon. So this is the old school buttstock. The one on there is the current adjustable one with the cheek piece, which is really to do with optics being at different heights and gives the weapon a bit of a different profile. The trigger group, so now this one actually has a AR magazine well on it, so ignore that. This one has the traditional HK one with the rocker attachment. But that does mean, pop this out as well. That trigger group, obviously modular, obviously replaceable. You'll notice texture, no texture on the old grip. The one in the game, you'll see it has the current pattern of HK pistol grip texture with those oblong raised, effectively doing the job of checkering, but it's not checkering. That real life redesign suits the game because we're putting magazine after magazine through these virtual weapons, aren't we? So, and of course, if you were outfitting a military service in 2 years and you wanted a G36, that's the version they're going to sell you. So great to see developers paying such attention to the market, as it were. Now, as a G36 connoisseur, how do you feel about this iteration?
I mean, I'm glad that it's in the game. I'm glad that they've, as you said, noticed the more recent A4 version. If I was being enormously greedy, I would like to see transparent mags, but that's just because I'm a sucker for transparent plastic on firearms, I think. But it's immediately become my weapon of choice on the assault class, and it's the weapon I've been using most to unlock all the other future weapons that we're likely to look up on in future episodes. But I do think this version is a little weird. The length with the sort of G36C rail always struck me as a little, I don't know. When I see that upper rail, I always think G36C.
Well, That's where you're wrong.
It works really well in the game. Yeah, the fire rate's really nice. I can definitely see this being one of the weapons I use most throughout my time with Battlefield 6. And with an extended magazine and fitting like a grip pod on it, you can sort of lean into the squad support weapon version of it as well.
I mean, you're right. Obviously, that it was the C model that pioneered this, because it was the CQB folk that most needed a change to that original carry handle with the built-in optic. But they carried that over to all the other variants because everybody wanted that.
And of course, there are plenty of uses of the G36 out there that don't use transparent mags. I'm just greedy. I just think they look a bit cooler.
Yeah, probably ideally should have the transparent mag in it. So you're not wrong by any means, not just a preference thing.
I just imagine it's an absolute rendering nightmare to have that many players and a transparent magazine.
That's probably it, isn't it? Actually, that would have been a reason to go for this AR magwell on it, and then you could have had just the same HK non-transparent style of mag that's on the 433 in the game. Could have gone with that. I think that kind of changes the look a bit too much, so they obviously wanted the G36 native, as it were, magazine type, just not transparent. I'm sure you can find some non-transparent G36 mags.
Hostile numbers have fallen. Keep it up.
Well, I think I'll just say that I'm incredibly excited to play the game. I held off playing the beta version and regretted it, so I will see you on the battlefield, I suppose, is a very cliched way to put it.
I'll drag you into one of my squads, mate.
Hooray! I can hide behind
some
you.
of the ropes. And you can laugh at me when I inevitably try and look cool in the helicopter and crash it.
Well, yeah, there is that.
Thank you all for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Join the Patreon if you want a longer, deeper, extended edition of this episode. And be sure to let us know what other games, movies, TV shows, or beyond you'd like to see featured on the channel. As always, a massive shout out goes to our supporters over on the Patreon for supporting EXP and for allowing us to make cool content like this. Links to support Jonathan and the Royal Armouries will also be in the description below, so make sure you check those out and support those wonderful people as well. Thank you again for watching, and we will see you real soon.